Valerie Weekes, past President, United Nations Association of Australia, New South Wales, to do the introduction.
Put your hands together, everybody. Thank you for coming today to celebrate. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Hand up anybody who can't.
We can hear you very well.
Thank you.
Don't worry.
Thank you for coming today to celebrate 2014 International Women's Day. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and their elders. UN Women's theme for 2014 is Inspiring Change. Quite a challenge when dealing with those, both men and women, who have fixed prejudices about the differences between men and women. Today I want to mention some of the prejudices and difficulties which need to be changed. There are positive achievements taking place, but there is still a long way to go. Usually these prejudices relate to the perceived comparative inferiority of women's intellectual processes and their inability to act responsibly. No wonder it took so long for women to gain the vote. These detractors usually soften their stance by claiming that women have some compensatory esoteric quality, such as a mythological sixth sense. Or the detractors like to claim that because women bear children, that automatically makes them stupid. The prejudices are far-ranging. Look at this tube of toothpaste. When I was 10, a visitor told me that he would show me a difference between men and women. He indicated to me where my father had been squeezing the tube from the bottom of the tube, which enabled the toothpaste to flow out easily. The visitor now asked to see the tube of toothpaste my mother used, and confidently assured me that, like all women, she would have been squeezing the tube from nearer the top of the tube, thereby inadvertently jamming up the toothpaste and making it more difficult for the toothpaste to flow. I showed the visitor the tooth powder in a circular tin that my mother used. She did not even use a tube. At the same time, I took delight in showing my own small tube of toothpaste, which I squeezed from the bottom of the tube. He did not raise the matter again. Another theory with which we have to contend is that women are born with brains different from men's. For different, read inferior, no matter how soft the language is in which it is encouched. The most recent British Science Writer of the Year, Robin Mackey, has ridiculed the theory that from birth men are innately more rational and better at map reading than women, who are emotional, empathetic multitaskers, useless at telling jokes. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, led by Professor Ragini Verma, have even drawn diagrams with coloured lines, linking various parts of the brain to try to prove the theories. It makes such a good media story. However, their theories are discounted by such scientists as Robert Pomin, Professor of Behavioural Genetics at London's Institute of Psychiatry, Professor Steve Jones of University College London, Professor Dorothy Bishop of Oxford University, Marco Catani of London's Institute of Psychiatry, as well as Robin McKee, awarded the prize for British Science Writer of the Year for 2013. The main arguments against the theory are that male and female brains are found to be similar at birth, and that differences in their brains are due to subsequent cultural factors, including society's expectations of them, and the consequent differences in their training and treatment. The possibility was simply not addressed by Professor Verma and her team. Also, the techniques used by Verma and her colleagues, diffuser tensor imaging, provides only indirect measures of structural connectivity and cannot be relied on for accurate measurement, according to Marco Catani of London's Institute of Psychiatry and Professor Heidi Johansenberg of Oxford University. In so many religions, negative attitudes towards women are encouraged. Women are often even presented as the cause of all the ailments and problems of humankind. Remember the stories of Pandora's box or of Eve and Adam. Appalling discrimination against females is occurring today globally, arising from many people's negative attitude towards women in various parts of the world, such as China, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Lebanon, Korea, and other places. Unwanted female offspring are simply killed. This has resulted in an imbalance of males over females, but it has not contributed to female emancipation. It is documented that some women in India who refuse to cooperate in the destruction of a female child, either by murder or by abortion, are subjected to violence, both physical and emotional, at the hands of their in-laws. The women are often oppressed by other members of the family also. According to UN Women, 60 million girls under 18 have been forced into marriage. Some are actually sold into marriage by their parents. A young wife can be repeatedly raped by her husband's brothers who cannot find partners. There are reports of people kidnapping girls to raise as partners for their sons in India as well as in China, where by 2020, an estimated 24 million young Chinese males will face the prospect of no female partner. Why this discrimination against girl offspring? Why kill so many when they are already in such short supply in those countries? In China, girl aversion is often put down to the Confucian system, that family name and property can be passed down only through the male line. China's one-child policy from 1979 has been said to contribute to the problem. The human biological norm is for 105 boys to be born to every 100 girls, because boys don't last quite as long. In parts of central China and northwest India, there are reported 150 boys recorded born for every 100 girls. In India, traditionally, the son provides for the parents when they grow old, and only a son can perform his parents' funeral rites. Also in India, the dowry normally paid by the bride's family is often a large part of the family wealth. Every son is a way of getting money in, whereas every daughter represents an outflow of wealth from the family, says Rita Banerjee, founder of the 50 Million Missing Girls campaign in India. In Indian rural areas, demands for dowry have escalated from cash and jewellery to expensive motorbikes. One woman interviewed said that her family struggled to give a foreign-made car and a flat as dowry gifts. In the Eastern European countries, where there are smaller families and the patriarchal societies support male offspring, these countries also have skewed sex ratios. Discrimination, which I had to handle smoothly so as not to cause disruption. For after all, the main purpose of a school is to cater for the students. One day I may write a book. For the record, I must state that I have been fortunate in the support and understanding of my husband Kenneth, who is a historian of some distinction who I met at the university. Actually, I shouldn't put this in, but they say a historian is the best sort of husband. As one becomes older, the more interesting one seems. As you all no doubt follow media reports, I shall not go into the low representation of women in government bodies. For centuries, women have had to put up with positive discrimination in favour of men in government circles. But many people now are totally opposed to any target of giving a certain percentage of position to equally qualified women. I'm sure you are aware that in the United States no female has ever yet been president. Watch this space. Make of this what you will. I'm sorry, I apologise to the gentleman present. Make of this what you will, but Charlotte Whitten once said, quote, "Whatever women do, they must usually do twice as well as men to be thought half as good. Luckily, this is not difficult." Unquote. This was how she saw it. Women have achieved success in areas competing with men, but often they do not receive recognition. There are so many examples, I'll just pick a couple. Sarah Angelina Ackland, 1835 to 1930, is hardly a household name. And yet, in the late 19th century, she reigned supreme in the field of colour photography. Her work preceded that of the celebrated Lumiere brothers, who got all the acclaim. The early female film directors have been generally overlooked by historians. Alice Guy, who made hundreds of films, was one of the first persons of either sex to make a film with a plot in 1896. Yet her work often goes without notice. May Gibbs, who wrote Stubblepot and Cuddlepie, was Australia's first writer-illustrator of note. She's gone down in our history, predating Norman Lindsay. After their deaths, the government of the day spent a vast sum restoring Norman Lindsay's house, while through neglect, May Gibbs' house came close to being partially demolished. It was saved only through the efforts of volunteers, including my husband and myself, and about 12 other people, and so on. On a happier note this month, I saw a newspaper interview with Kelly Betts, who holds multiple national and local wins in motor racing, competing equally with men and winning frequently. Good on her. What is the United Nations doing about achieving fairer treatment for women? Fortunately for this planet, there are several bodies in the United Nations system dedicated to supporting women across the globe. There is the Working Group on the issue of discrimination against women in law and practice, the Commission on the Status of Women, concerning the promotion of women's rights in the political, economic, social area. UN Women, of course, formed to coordinate gender equality and empowerment of women across the UN system. The Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and other groups. There is one negative comment I would like to make about all this. As you may have noticed, at times admittedly, not so frequently, the strongest gender discrimination can come from fellow females, be they Australian mothers, Asian mothers-in-law, or simply colleagues. A friend of mine joined the local branch of one of the two major political parties. She was well-educated, dedicated, extroverted, but when she began to show interest in one day applying for pre-selection, she found that the greatest hostility and opposition came from the females in the branch, treating her quite differently from any male with the same aspirations. Within the various women's movements, much more needs to be done to educate females themselves in their attitude towards treating other females fairly and equally. This area sometimes seems neglected. There have been and still are numerous barriers for women as they strive to develop their potential. It seems foolish to deprive the world of 50% of the talent available in these increasingly difficult times. The United Nations and other bodies that have been set up to support women have many challenges ahead, and they deserve the support of all of us. I want to thank you all for being such a supportive audience in hearing me. Especially I want to thank the gentlemen for their attention. As Marcel Achard once said, women like a silent man. They think he is listening to them. Thank you.